this was all circulating around the base, that a giant had been killed, but no one was supposed to talk about it.
I saw 3 long, bony fingers reach up underneath the door, curl up to grab it, and then disappear.
When he came over to me, dude, he slithered over to me.
And this giant comes out of the cave, and they're all frozen. And he starts running and firing at this giant. Well, the giant moves. He's got a spear in one hand, and he's running really fast and spears Dan and holds him up like this. Somebody yells, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. They basically decapitate him.
Got closer, got closer, got closer. When he got about 15 yards away from me, I raised that 12 gauge and I blowed his head off.
I feel something pulling at my leg, and I look over and there are 2 small gray entities pulling at me. And they're literally, I'm getting pulled off the bed.
I reached my hand into this bush and I touched air. Couldn't breathe and I couldn't move because I know I'm seeing a monster.
Yep. Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to The Confessionals. I am your host, Tony Merkel. Thank you for being here. If you've had an encounter or a story you'd like to share with me on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email. My email address is theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. That's theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. Or go to the website, theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the contact section, and you can reach me that way as well. Either works for me, just get a hold of me. And if you want to hear more shows every week, on Thursdays, we release a bonus show to the members on the website. So if you want to hear twice The Confessionals every week, Tuesdays and then Thursdays, the members show, go to theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the join button, and become a member today to get access to all the membership content. And we have some new fun stuff coming up here next year, so look out for that. Now, we also offer preparewiththeconfessionals.com. That's preparewiththeconfessionals.com. And that is an emergency preparedness food company that we have partnered with so that we can offer you great deals on emergency supplies, not just food, but all types of emergency supplies. And right now, if you go to the website and you get a 4-week supply of emergency food, you'll get $100 knocked off right on the spot. And right now, it's time to prepare for your future, which is within the next year. You want to make sure that you have everything stocked up that you need in case of an emergency in your house. Right now is the time to start doing that. So go to preparewiththeconfessionals.com and start preparing today. Now, this week we have Cheyanne and Joanna coming on the show. Cheyanne is actually the future sister-in-law of Joanna, and they both have crazy experiences, separate but crazy. We're going to start off with Cheyanne, who is actually an accomplished musician. We're going to play some of her music so you guys can hear how cool she is on the music front. And then we're going to get into her paranormal experiences and her Bigfoot encounter, which she called the Black Nemesis. We're going to talk all about that stuff. And then we're going to bring on Joanna. And Joanna's going to talk about her Bigfoot experience. Well, I'll call it a Bigfoot, but she came on very hesitant as to what to call it. But here's the crazy thing. What she saw this Bigfoot do, other people have said they've seen done as well, including Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles, when he talks about seeing these Bigfoot and one dropped down into all 4 looking like a spider as it walked. Like they actually kind of had this spider walk. And Joanna described the same exact thing, and her experience was only 25 miles away from Wes Germer's Bigfoot encounter. It's crazy how close these two experiences were together, and what they saw were so similar. And here's the kicker. Joanna never heard of Sasquatch Chronicles, never heard of Wes Germer until this recording. So let's get to the two ladies right now. All right, today we got Cheyanne on the show. Cheyanne, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Tony. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So before we get going here, literally in the last 10 seconds before I hit record here and we were just silent, I looked at your email and I saw your Twitter handle, which is Hella Stressed. And I just want to ask you, how'd you come up with that? Because my Twitter handle is Tony Merkel, my Instagram, Tony Merkel, but your Instagram is Hella Stressed. Why?
Well, I made that Instagram handle, I think it was back in like 2014. And I made it for a meme account handle because I like memes. And at that point in my life, I was particularly hella stressed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I had moved to Nashville on my own. I had no family or friends there. And I moved there to pursue music. And I had gotten a job to support myself in a kitchen. And I started as like the runt in the dishwasher, making about $10 an hour. So keeping that going in music and not knowing anybody, I was, like I said, hella stressed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's where that came from.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I knew there had to be a story behind it, so I had to ask. Now, since you said that, do you have any recorded music that I could hear at some point?
Yes, actually, I do. I have a SoundCloud. It's Cheyanne Reese-Howe. And I did end up recording some music in Nashville, and it was fully produced and in a studio, and I like it. I'm proud of it. It's definitely it took a lot of hard work and time, but I'm happy with it, which is, as someone who works on music and drawing and art, like for someone to say I'm happy with what they created, like that's it. I'll just say it doesn't happen a lot, but I'm happy with the songs that are up there.
That's really cool. So I'm looking at your SoundCloud right now. Cactus Mix 2, All for Love. So this is some of your stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'll just tell people the Cactus Mix 2 has almost 5,000 plays. That's not too shabby.
I actually did not know that until this moment. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Can I play it?
Sure.
All right, I'm going to play it right now.
Okay. Can you actually, I have a request though. Can you play the All for Love one, the master? Because that is like my pride and joy.
That's what I'm going to do then. Here we go.
All right.
This is All for Love, the mastered version. Let's go.
I sold my soul for love, paid my weight in gold for love, cheated, I lied, I stole for love, laid my body down on a bed of coals for love. I broke the law for love, left my mom and pop for love, took a cold hard fist to the jaw for love, damn near lost it all for love, made my way from York to Coeur d'Alene, hoping that my luck would change, made a fool of myself down in Salt Lake City for a young gun runaway, but you
Wow. That's impressive.
Thank you.
Listen, I'm not even lying to you. This song is fantastic.
Thank you.
I went live on Instagram and let people hear it while we were listening to it.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you, this was a fantastic song. I love country music. I know people don't believe me because of the music I play for outros. I love all music, but you know, I'm a truck driver, so I enjoy country music as well, especially when you're driving around the road. I'm telling you, that is a fantastic song. I'm incredibly impressed with it. And it's definitely going to, with your permission, it's definitely going to be the outro song for this episode when we put it up because
oh my God, I'm
fantastic.
going to cry. Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you.
I'm telling you, blown away. I just want to listen to it like 10 more times right now. It's fantastic. So congratulations on that particular song. Fantastic.
Thank you.
And it should definitely be on the radio. So
thank you.
I know we're here to talk about other stuff, but I want to ask you, what was the process like for you in Nashville? So you're hella stressed 24/7.
Yes.
You're chasing music. You're fantastic. From the way you described the situation, it sounds like you're not doing music anymore, right?
Well, I am. I spent about 7 years there, and then I ended up turning 30, and then I started kind of questioning things because it is highly competitive there. It was weird. I made some great connections. I made some great moves and was blessed with the people that I met, but it was still, I just kind of came to a point where I felt like I had to decide between staying and pursuing it like hardcore and spending more time away from my family and deciding whether it was time to just kind of like put family first and come back and have that support. And I miss my family. I was away from them for 7 years. So honestly, that was kind of the catalyst for me leaving Nashville. But
yeah. And I can understand that for sure. I mean, it takes a lot of work. So my dad went to Nashville and recorded music back in the 90s. And,
really?
Yeah. It was gospel music, but he made several trips down there. He recorded singles. He won New Male Vocalist of the Year of the Gospel Division in 95. Yeah. And he was also nominated for Single of the Year. But, you know, he never got signed by anybody. You know, it's an image-driven industry. And, you know, back then he was, you know, not fitting the image. And so it didn't matter how good he could belt it. He didn't have the image that they were looking to sign. So it is what it is. I mean, it's a hard thing to make. I mean, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of talent. And just because you have talent doesn't mean that it's going to happen for you, especially overnight. Not everybody can be Justin Bieber or have a channel drumming on YouTube at 12 years old to become a sensation by the time he's 13. But listen, I'm always very impressed with people who travel to pursue their dreams when it comes to creating, whether it's, you know, art or music or things like that, acting, people who are that driven. I just absolutely love it. And congratulations on that song. And hopefully this isn't the end of the road for you, because I would love to hear you on the radio one day.
Thank you. Honestly, like that really means a lot to me. And I didn't expect to have this conversation with you tonight about this, but like it definitely, it's something that from my earliest memories, music has always meant a lot to me, and it's been very consistent in my life. I mean, I'm 33 now, and I was just writing music last night. And sometimes it's validated, sometimes it's not. And I am still pursuing it. I still like play out when I can, obviously not with COVID, but I'm still writing, and I still have those connections in Nashville. So I'll like occasionally send songs back to certain people. But like, I don't think about it a lot because life gets in the way, and I have a job, and I have family here now and friends, but moments like this remind me how much I love it and my passion for it. And I really appreciate it. I really appreciate those words from you and for playing my song. Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, if there's ever a time that you come out with another single and you want it played and stuff, we'll throw it on the show for the outro music and stuff, and, get it plays that way, and we'll direct people your direction. I mean, anything I can do to help you, I'm 100% going to support you on that. So, let's move on, because we just burned about 13 minutes of talking music. People want to hear about your stories. And so let's start out with the earliest one you can remember, and we're going to work through this story together. It's when you were 14 and you saw a UFO with multicolored lights. What happened?
Yes. And thank you again. So I'll start out by saying, from the time that I could remember, I have always had a crippling fear of aliens and anything that had to do with that subject. I don't know why. I mean, I've thought about it, and I know, like, in the 90s, there was a lot of movies, and, like, it was kind of in the culture for, like, scary alien abduction. Like, obviously, the movie Independence Day, and the like Fire in the Sky movie, and the X-Files. So I've thought about that. Like, maybe I just kind of was influenced by those things subconsciously, because it was definitely, I feel like that was just a big thing in the 90s. But I just always remember being, like, really afraid of aliens. I mean, that was, like, my biggest fear when I was little. And so, but I never, like, saw anything before this point. I never had any experiences, obviously, that I know of. I'm not claiming to have had any abduction experiences. I can't remember anything like that. So when I was about 14 years old, I was in my room, and in my room, there on the wall facing south, I had a huge window, and you could see the sky clearly. I grew up in a very small town, dairy town, so there wasn't a lot of, like, lights around or buildings or anything like that. Like, you could clearly see out the window to the sky. There was a tree, but it was not, like, blocking my view to the sky. So I remember I don't remember anything else about this night, but I remember I was in my room, like, whatever, like, cleaning or writing music maybe, or whatever. Was not thinking about anything. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't like, thinking about aliens, nothing. But I just remember being in my room, and something told me to look out the window. And I looked out my window, and it was, I'm assuming it was around, like, 7, 8 at night, because it was, like, completely dark outside. But I don't know what time of day it was, but it was dark outside. And there was a craft. It was very large, oval shaped, and there was a row of lights around the craft. And it was, like, just super, it almost looked like cartoony, the lights. And the lights were, like, flashing all in, like, a row around the craft. And it was, like, bright orange, green, yellow. It almost looked like a cartoon, like, not really, but just the brightness of the lights, and, like, it was bizarre. And I wasn't afraid when I saw it, as most of my experiences that I've subsequently had after that, I wasn't scared. I was just looking at it. Like, my brain was like trying to figure out what I was looking at. And like I said, it was like, it was large. It was right outside my window. It was not like super far away. And kind of like, well, I couldn't really, I don't know. I just saw like the outline of the shape of it and the lights. Like, obviously the lights were what stood out to me. And then oddly enough, and I just recently talked to my mom about this because I knew I was going to come on the show, and I was trying to piece together what happened at night. And I know, because since I was little, I've talked to my mom about like UFOs and aliens and all that stuff, and my fear of them. And I asked her, I was like, that night, do you remember me coming down and telling you or running to you scared or anything like that? Like, do you have any memory of that? And she said no. And I don't remember anything after that. And to me, that's weird, because I feel like with my fear of aliens, I just find it bizarre that I have no recollection of what happened once I saw that. All I remember that night is looking out my window and seeing whatever I saw. And so I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying I experienced anything else beyond that. But what I will say is I don't remember anything after that. And I can also say I never saw that again. That was the one and only time that happened. And that was that. So
yeah, you know, it's interesting because a lot of times people will say little things that are very similar to other people's experiences, like something told me to look out the window, or something told me to look this direction. And yeah. I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know if it's something as simple as a sixth sense that we have that kind of kicks in at times, or if there's literally something telling you to look at it. And it's kind of trippy either way you think about it. What do you think about that kind of situation? Do you think that you were literally just like some kind of sense just kicked in that you knew that you kind of needed to look a certain direction?
To be honest with you, I just think it was my brain being like used to that environment and what was in that environment. And like, I think, people's brains are so much more complex. Obviously science points to that. Like, our brains are so much more complex than we understand yet. And I think it was just something as simple as like, something is different in the environment, and then your brain kind of pointing you in that direction. Like, look over there. That's where the different thing is. Like, that's where the weird thing is. But I do also, I believe that we have intuition and things like that. But I don't know. And I will only speak to my own experience. But as far as that, I think it was just like my brain was like, something weird is over there. Look over there. Like, something is there that's not usually there.
Yeah. It's really interesting when people recall just something simple as you saw an unidentified flying object in the sky, and what you described being oval with lights around it, it has that traditional UFO feel to it.
Yes.
And I know it seems like you're very guarded to exaggerate anything that you experience. Yeah. And I understand that. And that's good. That's actually a really good thing. On my end, it's kind of my job to speculate and just wonder out loud.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying with not remembering things, I'm sure you know that that's a very common thing with the abduction scenario. Now, I'm not saying you were abducted, but I'm just saying it's a common thing. But what also is a common thing is people saying that they saw some UFO in a group of people. They saw it, it left, and nobody talked about it. They can remember what happened. They all were, driving in the car and they just left and they went and did their thing. But it's a very common thing that they just don't talk about it. And so it seems like whatever these things are has the ability to play with our minds in a sense. To me, that's what I think. Because whether you were abducted or whatever, it did something that, had an effect on your mind in a way that you don't remember things. I kind of put that in the same category as people who saw a UFO, a very dramatic UFO, together, and after it left, they just continued on their merry way and didn't talk about it. Like, that's not normal, So
yeah,
I just feel like these things, whatever they are, and I don't think they're all the same thing, but I think that they can have just something about them that is just different,
Yeah, and I kind of would agree with that because even in that experience, like my own experience there, I will say normally, I mean, I won't like you say, I'm hesitant to like jump to conclusions, but I know that the first thing I would have normally done would have been to run to my mom or my brothers or my dad and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened. And so I do think that part is super weird. It's weird that no one else remembers me doing that, and I don't remember doing that. So yes, I think it's weird that I have like hazy memory around that. And like I said, I know myself even to this day, like from when I was little to right now. If something weird happened, I'm not going to be like, oh, it was this, like it was an alien or it was whatever. But I can assure you, I would tell people about it and I'd be excited about it and I'd want to hear their opinions about it. So I do think that's weird that I have no memory. And like I said, no one else in my family has a memory of me being like, oh my gosh, I just saw this UFO outside my window. Like, that's weird to me.
It is weird. But these situations are weird. It's not a normal situation. And, even though UFOs are as prevalent as they are, the more you talk to people, it's not like every day you see one. And it's not like the majority of people see UFOs. I don't think the majority of people do see UFOs. I think if you're looking for them, you have a strong chance to see one. But most people aren't looking for them. And on top of it, we can't see our stars half the time in this country or in the world, So light pollution is a very real thing. And I think that UFOs can definitely use that to their advantage. And not to mention, if these things have the technology they have, I mean, shoot, they could just cloak if they wanted to. So
yeah, exactly.
But let's move on to the Black Nemesis. What the heck is the Black? I mean, I think I might name this episode the Black Nemesis. That's just a crazy name.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say one more thing on that other topic before we move on, is that I was able to my mom had told me like 10 years down the road when we were talking about that, and I had asked her, like, as an adult, like, do you remember me talking about this with you? And again, I just asked her again recently, like, are you sure you don't remember anything about this incident? But she had also told me at one point that she had found a website. And I just recently tried looking for it because I knew I was going to be on the show talking to you. I tried to find it. I could not. But I did find a website where it had all of the UFOs reports for Western New York. And I'm assuming they have them in every state, maybe every county. I don't know. But I was able to see that from around like that age that I was at that time, there were like multiple, and I'm talking like in the like at least like 20 or 30 of them that people had reported the same kind of, like, seeing the same kind of craft in that area.
So you weren't the only one.
I was not. And so obviously that was validating as well.
Do you think you needed that validation?
No, but it was definitely interesting.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes if people, because I legitimately asked you that, curious, because, you know, I wonder sometimes if having that validation that other people saw what this person is claiming they saw, if that truly helps them psychologically process the information, or if it's just kind of like an added bonus of, okay, good, other people saw it. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder.
Yeah.
Because some people see things very dramatic, and if they have that validation that other people saw it too, I imagine that has a big part of their psyche and, you know, staying sane.
Yes. I definitely would agree with that. And I think that's like I think that's why people like your show too, is because people call, like, someone who maybe even hasn't looked into this stuff, experiences something totally weird, and then people call your show and then they have that same experience as the person listening, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, there is definitely something validating about it. It makes you feel like, because I have had those doubts. I've had the doubts of, like, is this really what happened? Or, like, did my, like, brain just, like, piece it together like this or whatever? But to hear someone else say, I have experienced, especially if you didn't tell them first, and you just hear someone randomly, like, explaining the same exact thing that you've been through, it definitely helps. Like, you feel less alone. You feel like, yeah, you feel validated. So,
with your permission, let's talk about Black Nemesis, because this.
Okay.
I mean, I can't be the only one that thinks that name's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, like, honestly, I have not told a lot of people this one. And again, it's not this happened to my neighbors, who live directly next door, but they were on our property. So, but, we joke about it a lot. I mean, my family definitely we have, like, I guess you would call it, like, dark humor, but we joke about the Black Nemesis, like, all the time still. But I don't remember who came up with that name, but I wish I did so I could give him credit. But yeah.
So what was it though?
Well, I don't know, but I'll tell the story, and maybe you can tell me what you think. I will say some people in my family they think it's probably a Sasquatch. I say some people in my family, but I would lean toward that as well. But I'll get into the story. So this happened to my neighbors, Jake and Morgan. They lived directly next door to us. But we were so close, like, they ended up being like our, like, brother and sisters. They would just, like, come on our property. We would go on theirs, like, growing up, if they wanted to, because we had, like, woods on our property, and, we had trails out there, like, we would dirt bike, hike, all that stuff. So, one day, Jake and Morgan were out there, and I think that they were probably around, like, like 10 and 11 or around that age. But, they said that they were back there just, like, kind of goofing around, like, hiking, whatever. And this creature was, like, they were on the path. So there was, back behind our house, like, farmers used to rent out, our property to grow, like, to farm the land. Sometimes there'd be corn, cabbage, whatever. But there was like trails around the fields, like where the tractors would go and the farm vehicles. And they were on one of those trails, and they said that they were walking and this creature just like rose out of the mud, and it was like covered in like dirt and mud, and like it stunk really bad. And they said that they just lost their minds. Like they just kind of lost it and turned around and ran home. And for them to like make it from our property to their place, it was probably like 15, 20-minute walk. So yeah, this thing like crawled out of the mud, and scared the crap out of them basically. And they just ran and got out of there. They told their parents, they told us. They were like super upset about it. And we, like I said, we all, like my family had like crazy humor. They were crazy humor. Like we were all the time, like just laughing and joking around, goofing off. Like, but they were like super, super bothered by this and really upset. And again, like I just talked to Jake, a couple weeks ago. Like we have a long history, and we've been joking around since we were little, but this is not a joke. Like they, to this day, we'll still bring this up, and like, yeah, we do joke about it. Like, but at the time we knew like something happened. We don't know what happened, but like they were extremely bothered by it and upset by it. But I can say like with that, like we were back there all the time, and like me and my brothers, like we didn't stop going back out there. We didn't stop like dirt biking or hiking or whatever out there. Like we still went out there all the time and like never saw anything, but I don't know. So, and then, like I said, one of us after that story, like nicknamed it the Black Nemesis because it was like dark and covered in mud and, basically just like a monster. So, but that's that. And like I said, I didn't go through that. So that's really all I can tell you about that one. But
well, I find it really interesting. And now they ran home, but did they ever relay that they felt like this was like physically intimidating to them, where if they didn't run home, this is gonna, go after them? They didn't say that it like chased them or anything like that. I think, and kind of along the lines of what we were talking about before, now knowing about like Sasquatches and that kind of thing, I think they do like the bluff thing a lot, and they just like show off their physical presence. And a lot of times I think that's enough to get their point across. And I personally think it was something like that, because I think if something like that wanted to chase them, and them being like 10 and 11 years old, that would have been really bad. So, and they never said it chased them, nothing like that. So I personally think it was just, like this thing saw them and wanted to maybe intimidate them, or they just kind of came up upon it and it was just like minding its own business and was like, I'm going to get out of here. But it was so scary that it just like freaked them out. So yeah. I don't know. Well, it's interesting at least. And the Black Nemesis, I mean, that's just I can't get past that name. It's such a great name. Yeah. Because, people who have Sasquatch encounters, depending on where you're at in the country, you're going to have oral tradition of calling it a certain name. And I just, it'd be really cool if this was something that happened a lot in your area and the name, the Black Nemesis, took off, and just that was the local lore. People talk about the Black Nemesis. That would be just so, that would be worth making a documentary about, worth making a movie out of, because just the name itself is just so great.
Yeah.
So, so that happened when you were about 17 or 18, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And they're a little bit younger than me. So, yeah.
And so now let's move on to age 23 and your Shadow Man encounter.
Yeah. So for me, this was like the hot tamale, like the coup de grace of my paranormal experiences. And this is kind of down the line what got me like super into the paranormal, and kind of what got me listening to your podcast actually is just like that search of like trying to figure out what the heck it was that I saw. And so, I guess I will just get into this. So at the time, it was around, it was sometime in November. I know that, cause it was at like a state park and it was still open, but it was really cold, and I remember that it got dark really early. But I remember that day my brothers had taken me hiking because I had just recently gone through a breakup, and they were trying to cheer me up. And I was just like super down in the dumps about it. And we just figured like, let's get out of here. Let's go hiking and be out in nature. And so we did that. And, I don't know. I guess I can say where it was. It was, Letchworth State Park, which are you familiar with that? Cause I feel like that's not too far from where you are.
No, I'm not at all.
Okay. Yeah. There's like a creek there and lots of woods and, a lot of trails. But so we hiked there all day. It was awesome, and, definitely got my mind off things. And the sun started to go down, and they wanted to go on another hike. And I was just not feeling it. I was cold. I was tired. It was getting dark. So they were like, okay, we're just going to go like do this really quick trail. That was like kind of by where the car was parked. So I was like, I'll wait in the car and you guys go do that. So that's what they did. And again, the sun was going down and it was getting dark, and I was sitting in the car waiting for them. And again, so it was like late November, so nobody else was there. We were the only ones in the park. Parking lot was empty. And we were parked like right next to the woods. Like our car was like right next to the trailhead. So I was sitting in the car waiting for them. I remember my phone had died, so I was bored, and I had started reading the car manual because I was just like, I was probably so used to having a phone or looking at something at that point that I was just like, I gotta look at something. So I was like reading the car manual. And again, like before, something told me to look up. And about like probably like 5 to 10 feet from the car along the tree line, I looked up and there was this like shadow of a person, and it was looking at me. And that sounds weird because it didn't have a face, but it was like humanoid enough that you could tell, like I could tell, I could just instinctually tell it was looking at me. And again, just like with the prior experience I had, I wasn't afraid. It was more of like what am I looking at here? Like, my brain was trying to process what I was looking at. And again, it was just this, like, it was a shadow, but in the shape of a human being. But the way that it moved was like against, like, physics. It had, like, no, when a person moves, I feel like you can see that they have, like, there's, like, a weight to them. And it was like I don't even know how to explain it. It was weightless, but it was, like, super fast and, like, I don't know. It was just and it was so black. It was like the darkest black I have ever seen in my life and have yet to see again. It was, I just, like I said, it was looking at me. I sensed it was looking at me, and I was, like, looking back at it, and again, just my brain was, like, trying to figure out, like, what the heck am I looking at? What is this? And then my brothers were just, like, coming over the trailhead, and I was like, as soon as they got up to me, because then as soon as they came in the picture, like, it just, like, fluttered away, like, it was gone. And I was like, please, for the love of God, like, tell me you saw that. Again, like, I don't want to be the only one that sees this. Like, and they were like, what the heck was that? And I was like, I don't know. And so we looked around, couldn't find anything. And then, so we're like, let's get out of here, because we were all feeling, like, creeped out at that point. And they said when we were leaving the park, they saw something, like, crouched on a rock, like, looking at us. I didn't see that, so I can't speak to that, but, it, again, just, like, the whole experience, looking back, was like, oh my God, that was creepy. So, and I didn't actually know until years later. I had a job that I could just, like, sit and be on my computer all day. And I remember going back to that experience, and I just Googled, like, I don't even remember what I Googled, but I ended up finding stuff about shadow people, and I was like, oh, that seems to be, like, exactly what I experienced. And again, I felt validated. I was like, okay, well, at least this is, like, a thing that happens. But the one thing with that I will say is a lot of people that had, like, shadow men experiences seemed to, like, have that experience again and again, and I did not. That was, like, the one and only time that I have ever seen anything like that. And again, in the moment, I wasn't, like, super creeped out by it. I was just like, what is this? But then looking back, I was like, that was weird. That was creepy. And so I am now grateful that never happened to me again. But like I said, when I was reading about it, it seems that, like, people who experienced that one time then experienced it a lot. So I was definitely happy about that. But I didn't know what a shadow person was until, like, a while after that. So, and, like, Googling it basically. But
so you're saying, if I heard you right, it sounds like you said that this thing was up in the trees.
It was it was in the trees, but it was, like, standing on the ground, like, almost, It was, like, holding the tree and, like, looking to the side, and, like it was, like, standing behind the tree, but looking out at me.
Okay. My brain translated that into, you looked into the treetops and there was something standing at in the treetops.
Oh, no.
I'm like,
no, that.
That didn't freak you out?
That definitely would have freaked me out.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, I mean, if you did see it again, do you think you'd be freaked out the second time around now that you kind of educate yourself a little bit?
Oh yes, 100%. Because then I'd be like, okay, why are you like following me? But just seeing it this one time, I kind of attributed it to like, oh, maybe something happened in this area. Like maybe it was just the area that we were at. And like, that's why it was there. But, oh yeah, 100% sorry, I just got a text from my boss. If I saw that again now, yes, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, this is weird. I don't like this. But yeah, so, and then like I said, my brothers said they saw something like crouching, which is creepy in itself, but I didn't see that. But
let me ask you about this more recent experience. Now, you said that, I think you said your grandfather passed away in this house.
Yes.
And it's also the house that had the Bigfoot experience.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the Bigfoot experience where you were younger, or the one with your brother's fiance?
No, so this is the one, the recent one with my brother's fiance. Okay. So while I was living in Nashville, my parents moved to Oregon, and my older brother moved to Oregon, and they have a house. My mom was like, don't tell him where we live. Cause I guess like Finding Bigfoot actually did an episode in their town too. So, but so so I am, the town that I live in now is about an hour from Portland. And then.
Oh, I know exactly where it's at.
Okay. So yeah, like 15 minutes from me is where my parents live. And so when I moved from Nashville last year, I spent this summer at my parents' house, where they are now. And that is where I had I guess I'll call it a ghost. And I literally like talking about this stuff, and I feel like the Forrest Gump of the paranormal. Like I feel like it's like, okay, Bigfoot, aliens, shadow man, a ghost. So yeah, this was last summer, and when my family moved out to Oregon, they took my grandma and grandpa with them because they needed constant care. And they were able to do that. This house had kind of like it's not separate from the house, but it was like a full another like apartment in the house. So there's like a room, a bathroom, a loft, and all of that. So, and so I know that both my grandparents spent a lot of time in that room. And that's actually the same room that I stayed in when I moved out here last summer. So, so one night, not too long after I moved in, I was going to sleep, and right in that moment of like, you're not like fully asleep, but you are just about there. I felt a human, like the weight of a human, like sit on the bed, like sit on my legs, sit on the bed, enough to where it snapped me like fully awake. And I was looking around because there was a cat there, Morris, we still have him. And he just kind of wanders around the house at night. But so I was like, please, Morris, where are you? Like, please be in here. And the cat was not in my room. But I know, like, I'll say I was almost asleep, but I felt it. Like, I physically felt it. I felt a human being, like, sit on the bed on my legs. And I looked around, my cat was not in there. And at this point in my life, like, I had experienced so much that I was just like, okay, well, I'm going back to sleep, because what am I going to do? Like, if there is a ghost in here or whatever, like, I mean, what am I going to do? So the next day I went back to sleep, and then the next day my mom and I were walking the dog out back, which we've also experienced weird stuff on that path too, walking the dog. But I told her what happened, and she said, I don't want to upset you, but the same exact thing happened to me last night. And
Wow.
that brought tears to my eyes, because, again, I was like, oh, okay, so this is not just, but it made it more real for me. So, and with that one, I just kind of assume that it was one of my grandparents. Who knows? Like, I don't know, but that one just kind of felt, I didn't feel scared again. It was just like, what's going on here? But, I would like to assume it was just, either my grandpa or my grandma. So.
Well, I'll tell you, I've heard that before, people referencing such things. In fact, somebody in my family has said that to me recently, that they felt something like that happen in their bed. And it's never happened to me, but it's got to be a weird feeling, because, being in bed is a vulnerable place to be.
Yeah.
And, but I'm glad you find a little comfort in it, assuming that it might be your grandfather. I don't know, but it's definitely interesting. And I don't know. I think I'd probably get scared. I think I'd be scared.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, when it happened, I was definitely a little bit creeped out, because even if it is your grandpa or your grandma, you're like, yeah, it spooks you out. You're kind of like, what are you doing here right now? And I don't know, like, I'm just assuming it was one of them, but you don't know. And especially, I feel like when you wake up from that state, or like you get snapped out of that state, your body is kind of in that, like, it almost feels like the flight or fight thing. Like, you do kind of, there is like a panic thing that happens, but then to make yourself feel better, you're like, oh, maybe it was this, like, maybe it was these people that I loved. And that seems like that could be the case, because they spent a lot of time here. And I mean, but you don't know. So it's, yeah, that, I will say that one, like, that one was a little bit more on the, like, creepy side.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, I think I would be definitely creeped out by that.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that, typically nothing like this happens to me. It's always you suckers. I just get to listen to your stories. So, but hey, do you want to bring on Joanna, and we can talk to her about her experience?
Yes, that sounds good.
Joanna, I want to talk to you about Simply Safe, which is the sponsor for this week's show. They're quickly becoming a fan favorite, a show favorite of home security. Simply Safe is your go-to spot for that, because you know what? You can set it up yourself. You don't need any specialist coming in and designing your home a certain way. You know your home best. You know where your windows are at. You know where your doors are at, and you should be the one setting it up, making sure it's good to go. My dad used to do home security way back in the day, probably when they still, pushed cars with their feet, and he was really excited about having ice cream that one time. Anyways, my dad used to do home security, and he is astounded by Simply Safe and how easy it is for people to actually set it up themselves. Kind of ran people like him out of a job, But Simply Safe, you can do it in 30 minutes. It took me like an hour, but I'm a little slow. You guys are smarter than me. 30 minutes. It's all it's going to take for you to set up your whole house with home security. It has sensors, cameras to protect every inch of your home, and dispatch. So in that emergency, when you actually need the police brought to your house, they got you covered and they're going to take care of you. Now, Simply Safe is one of those companies that doesn't care about the whole long-term contract thing, the hidden fees, the installation costs. Obviously, they're not going to charge you to install it yourself. This is a great thing for you and your family, and it's something that everybody can do. Right now, my listeners get a free home security camera when you purchase a Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/confessionals. You also get 60-day risk-free trials, so there's nothing to lose. Visit simplysafe.com/confessionals for your free security camera. That's simplysafe.com/confessionals. And trust me, friends, the year's almost over. 2020 is out the door. 2021, though, isn't going to do you any favors. Look at Simply Safe and get your home secured right now.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Is this Joanna?
This is she.
Awesome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. My name's Tony Merkel, and I host this podcast, The Confessionals. And I hear you had a very interesting experience.
I did. Quite unexplainable.
Yeah. So Cheyanne told me that you're kind of hesitant as to giving it an actual definition of what you saw.
Yeah.
So I just want you to know I'm not the guy that goes around and saying they saw this or they didn't see that. I'm very open-minded, and I've talked to people that have a lot of crazy stories, and so I just want to hear what you have to what
Cool.
you saw. And this is like a very laid back kind of thing. I mean, I just talk to people and enjoy the conversation and hearing the stories. So
Okay.
but yeah, I heard you ask about where this is going to be aired and stuff. It's going to be aired online, but it's going to be accessible all over the world. Anybody can hear it. So just giving you a heads up. And
Okay.
if you're good, we can get this going.
Okay. Yeah. No, that sounds good.
All right. So with that said, I hear that I'm going to actually hold off from saying what I want to say it is, because I want to hear what your experience is and all
Okay.
that stuff. So
That's probably a good idea.
yeah, you saw something, a creature of some type that acted very strange. So with that said, could you just take it away and tell us where you were, what you were doing, what you saw, the
Sure.
whole thing?
So first of all, I want to start by explaining that I do spend a lot of time in the woods. I'm a fly fisher girl, and I love the woods. I was mushroom hunting this particular day for morel mushrooms. And as you know, sometimes morels can take you to some pretty crazy places. So we're in the Mount Hood Wilderness area near Parkdale. And we returned to a site we'd been before. I was with my fiancé, Cody, and we had good success at this particular spot where we were looking for mushrooms. And the way that I had this encounter, my partner was with me. However, he was about 20 yards behind me. I had kind of rushed up the road and started looking on the road where we had found morels before. I was really excited. And in this particular area, we were in a clear cut that had also been burned. So we had come out of the deep woods and entered a clear cut. He was still behind me on a logging road, and he didn't have visual on the actual opening of the clear cut. So if you can imagine me in front of him on a logging road and a tree line preventing him from looking up the clear cut where I had this encounter. So I'm head down, I'm silent, looking for mushrooms. And I saw something out of my peripheral vision about 75 yards straight up the side of a hill face toward the top of this clear cut, toward the peak of where it kind of levels off and then goes up higher behind it. And what I saw initially, my brain understood it as a human, a person that looked like they were macheting all of the down fallen tree brush, like pretty aggressively. And it's 4:00 in the afternoon, so the sun's out, and it was pretty bright. So I took my hands over my eyes to shield my eyes from the sun, and did the like universal like person looking stance, and really like funneled in my vision to figure out if it was people and if like maybe they had beat us to the spot. Naturally, my mind was like, oh no, someone beat us here, and they're going to have all the mushrooms. So as I like really focused my awareness and attention onto this dark figure that looked like it was a man in a like black hoodie or jacket that appeared to have a very long machete, pretty aggressively chopping downward into the ground. Now, I didn't see any debris, but I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Like, how is this possible? And my brain went through a couple different stages of processing pretty quickly. It went from someone's here, we should probably leave, like they already got the spot, to like, wait, no man moves like that. I've never seen that kind of thing before, to like kind of being in shock, like I don't understand what I'm seeing. Like my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. And then as I was looking at it, it turned around and faced me. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me like what the face looked like, and I don't actually recall seeing eyeballs or any form because of the lighting and the distance, but it was a silhouette of something that looked like an extremely lean, like ape-like, maybe man humanoid, but it was very lean. And 2 days prior, at the same spot before rain, we had gone there, and we recall hearing what we thought was a bear call warning us, and we left together cautiously as soon as we heard that. And we spoke to some locals and talked about it, and found out that there was some cattle that were moved in that evening. It was possible what we heard was a cow. Didn't think much of it. But it did cross my mind, like, is this some kind of bear that's super lean, straight out of winter? Maybe I've just never seen that before. I am not a local, so I'm aware that maybe, in that moment I was like, oh, I've never seen anything like this. I'm from Texas, actually. So I don't have a whole lot of experiences with bears. But as it looked at me, I got this chill that it really shocked me to my core. Like got icy cold, all the hair stood up on my body, to a point where I got, like it was like very physical reaction. And I recognized I was like spooked, but the thing that set me over the edge was the way it moved. From that moment, this all happened really quickly. And from the moment it looked at me, it pretty much instantly, while keeping its torso facing me, like, for lack of better words, octopused, maybe spidered its way up the hill, very fluidly and just so fluid. It literally reminded me of a cuttlefish or an octopus, which sounds a little silly, but that's the best language I can put to what I witnessed. And it buckled my knees quite a bit. I definitely got emotional. I had a hard time communicating with my partner what I had seen, but I was really adamant about leaving. I was trying to express, I just wanted to leave, and I was trying to process what I saw. And I did take some time. He calmed me down, was like, it's okay, just sit down for a second. And I did sit there, and I don't think I blinked for like 10 minutes, processing and replaying over and over with like an honest awareness of what I saw over and over, just sitting on the road looking at that exact spot, trying to make sense of it. But it sounds like cliche, but it moved in a way that is not of this world. And that sounds a little, it sounds a little crazy, but to like articulate what I mean by that better, it didn't move in a way that made sense to anything in this world that you see in reality or in the or in terms of like wildlife, documentaries, etc. I've never seen an animal move like that, or creature, or whatever it was. One more thing worth mentioning is a week prior, we had drove up to the exact spot where I had this sighting, and we walked around looking for morels. I know the terrain pretty well. I had just been there, and it was extremely challenging to walk through. So part of my shock was the awareness of the terrain and how it moves so fluidly, almost just gracefully ascending this very, dense, porous, down tree brush with blackberry brambles. So yeah, that is my best account of what I witnessed. I have had a lot of time to process. It did take me a while to really talk about it openly. I haven't really had any kind of experience like that before whatsoever. And it did shake me up for about 2 weeks, but I have been back into the woods. But I do, keep a pretty different awareness now. And
oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was my encounter.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, I want to tell you it's not the first time I've heard that. Okay. In fact, one of my best friends had a sighting of something extremely similar to what you just described. He said that it got down on all fours and almost looked like a spider on how it got down on all fours. He saw it go from 2 legs to all 4, and he said it was extremely fast in how it did it. His sighting was probably around 25 to 30 miles away from where you had your sighting.
Wow.
So you said that you were around Mount Hood, right?
Yeah, Mount Hood in the Parkdale area.
Okay. So if you're in the Parkdale area, you're looking at about 20 to 25 miles away. If you're going from a straight line from where he saw his experience in Washington, he lives just across the river. And, wow. Yeah. And it acted extremely similar.
Yeah. And as it, like, for lack of better words, spidered its way away, it did keep its like face facing me very, very steady. I mean, it was kind of like something you'd see in a horror movie. And I have spent a lot of time really trying to be aware and conscientious of, if I was in a state of fear, did I perceive something incorrectly with the distance and the sun and a heightened sense of emotional response? But I really felt like I was locked in on what I saw. And I honestly felt like somewhat like captivated, and I experienced quite an emotional response that isn't quite normal for me. It affected me for like weeks after too. It was pretty big.
Yeah.
A lot of processing.
Yeah, there's a lot of processing with this. And a lot of times when people see these things, especially people like you and my buddy, it's like, it changes your world. In fact, I mean, the audience knows who I'm talking about. You probably don't know unless you follow his podcast, but he has a podcast called Sasquatch Chronicles. And I
am now a fan as of this encounter.
Yeah. So,
a new fan.
Yeah. He started his show from him and his brother's experience, when they were out there and they saw what they saw. And it wasn't just one, wow. It was multiple, and they came in on their vehicle in the middle of the night. And so, it was a very dramatic encounter. In fact, do you want to hear his description of the creature he saw go down on all 4?
Yeah, I'd love that.
Okay.
And about that time, he leaned over and said, "I think we're being surrounded again." And I said, "Yeah, I just want to go. I don't want whatever's going on up here. I want no part of it. I want to leave." I felt like Alice in Wonderland at that point. It was just like, I just want out of here. So he goes to start the car, and take off. And that's when we actually saw it. This thing stepped out off the embankment into the road. Now, the embankment, again, because I've been back to the area, you can't step off of it. Like, I couldn't step off of it. It would take about 3 or 4 steps for me to get down to the road. This ain't just one step and it's on the road. And I wasn't, I didn't know what I was looking at. It was huge. It looked like a man, but it wasn't a man. It looked like a gorilla, but it wasn't a gorilla. It was just this huge, bulky thing. And it was muscular. And it started walking across the road. It took about 3 or 4 steps, walked across the road. But it would stop. It would take a step and it would kind of stop, and it would turn its whole upper body and look at us. And then it would take like 1 or 2 more steps and turn its body and kind of look at us. It was very, I felt like it was meant to intimidate us. And this thing was doing a good job of intimidating us. And it goes across the road, and I'm sure we were yelling at the time, what the F was that? I just remember my jaw being down, my jaw just being on the floor, my eyes being real big. And it goes across the road, and it goes behind this kind of a deadfall tree. The tree had been broken. It was about 8 feet up, but it was just kind of this dead tree. And it walks behind it. It stands there, and we could still see it. I mean, it was taller than the tree. We could still see from about the shoulders up. So it wasn't hiding from us. We could still see it. And Woody goes and he's acting like he's going to start the car and he's going to drive us out of there. And I'm like, I'm begging him at this point, don't drive past that thing. Don't, Tony, this thing was so big. I think at the time of when I first started, I thought it was like 12 feet tall. I think when we went back, realistically, it was more like 9 feet tall. But at the time, I mean, this thing could have been 50 feet tall. I had just never seen anything this physically big before. But it was about 9.5 feet tall, and it probably weighed about 1,000 pounds minimum. And Jeez. I was sitting there thinking, like, please don't drive. I was telling Woody, please don't drive past it. Please. Because honestly, in my heart, I felt like it could have grabbed this. It was so big. I felt like it could have grabbed the side of the car and flipped it over. And there would have been nothing we could have done about it. And we couldn't turn around and go the other way because this is the only way off the mountain. So we're stuck. If we turn and go the other way, we'll be on some crazy road. I don't even know where it goes. We have to go this way to get out of here. And so it's kind of a one road in, one road out type of deal. And it comes out from behind this tree, and it got down like it was going to charge us. I mean, it got down on all fours, not kind of on all fours. It got down like you'd see a runner get down, like a runner right before it takes off for a race. Yeah. They kind of have their butts in the air and their hands are down. That's what this thing did. And it would pump its butt like it was going to charge us. And I'm sitting there with my gun, my hands are shaking, and I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, please don't charge the car. Please don't charge the car. Please. Because I knew our guns weren't going to kill this thing. There's no way our guns were going to even take this thing down. And then it stood up and it went back to the deadfall tree, and it stood there. Pretty soon it'd come back out, did the exact same thing, acted like it was going to charge us. And then it would stand up and it would walk back. And it must have done this. Woody and I still argue about this, but Woody says, it was, I don't even know what 5 or 6 times, I think is what he says. I swear this thing did it way more than that. I mean, we sat there, and every time it came out, my heart sank. I thought for sure it was going to charge us, but it didn't. It stood back up, started walking back over behind the deadfall tree. And about that time, we saw where that one had stepped off the embankment. There was another one, but it was different. It jumped across the road, bounced off of it like it was a trampoline, and then went off into the bushes, and it was gone. The big one, if you can picture like Arnold Schwarzenegger, 1,000 pounds and 9.5 feet tall, that's kind of what this thing looked like. The head was very small and it sat right on the shoulders, but the head, I say at the time, it reminded me of a kind of a cartoon character, because the head seemed like it was too small for the body. The shoulders were extremely exaggerated. I remember just focusing in on those shoulders every time it came out, because the shoulders had to have been at least 6 feet wide. I mean, it was the biggest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And it went down to like a V. You know, like when you see Patty, she's big, but she's not stacked. She's not like ripped out.
Seems more frumpy.
Yeah, very frumpy. This thing was not like that at all. Not even close. And it was narrow in the waist. The legs on it were like tree trunks. The one thing I can tell you about it is the knees aren't in the same place where our knees are at. The knees are actually farther down. And it walked bent knee the whole time. It never straightened up. And it kind of walked, I say hunched over. Woody said more like slouched over, but it reminded me of, I did an interview with Chris Jericho, and I was looking at some of these wrestlers. And you ever see a guy that works out too much on his chest, and what ends up happening is the muscles tend to roll the shoulders forward and kind of pull the shoulders down. And I think that's why I say hunched over. It kind of had that. It was like it was too. I don't know. I'm not doing a great job at describing it, but it was kind of not hunched, but it looked like it worked out too much in its chest and kind of pulled. The shoulders are kind of rolled forward. The arms went down to almost the knees, not quite, but almost to the knees. The one that jumped across the road was built nothing like this other one. It was skinny. It was tall. It was, kind of a light gray, whitish color. And it reminded me of like a female jogger, that type of body type. It was still big. I mean, I'm sure it was bigger than me, but we only saw it for like 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, and it's gone. And when I say it bounced off that road, man, it bounced off that road like it was a trampoline. And as soon as it came across the road and went off into the bushes, the big one stepped back out, and I honestly thought I thought we're dead. And when he stepped out this time, throughout the whole encounter, he never turned his back on us. But when he came out this last time, he was squared up with us. And he came out to the middle of the road, and he just like collapsed. And what I mean by that is like he dropped down to all fours, not like before. This was actually dropping down to all fours. But it wasn't like how you and I would get down on all fours. This thing just collapsed, and it was down on the ground like a spider. It used its fingertips and its back toes, and it crawled about halfway out, stopped for a second, and then crawled off into the bushes, and it was gone.
I hear you agreeing with them. So I wanted to ask you. So, was it about the head size or what?
The structure, the head was small. So when I immediately had a lot of support that I didn't expect from family members and friends like that are from here that have, for Cheyanne especially, like with, hey, here's all these resources. You're not alone. It's okay. So I kind of started looking deeper into the Sasquatch everything. And the thing that really stuck out the most to me is I didn't really identify with this bulky, large, muscular figure. This was a very lean, strong, powerful being. So the size of the head, the broadness of the shoulders, something that really stuck out to me was the length of the arms. When I mentioned initially that I thought it was a man with a machete, it was because the shoulder to arm length was so ridiculous. It's like nothing I've seen, more than an ape or a gorilla. It's just nothing I had actually seen before. So that was definitely I started getting like almost nauseous just listening to his account, because I do relate to, I can relate to that.
Yeah. It's
in terms of size, you know, I honestly have not gone back to revisit. It's kind of funny because the very next day we had like torrential rainstorms, and I'm kind of beat myself up about it. It would be very much in my nature to go and look for prints and examine. And I did draw some pictures directly the evening this happened, as it was fresh in my mind of what I witnessed. But I did not go back to the site. And part of that was one of the properties I have to pass through to get there. They just asked me to, you know, please just stay home. So I didn't actually go back, and honored that and respected their wishes. And it felt like the right thing to do in the moment. So I didn't go back, but I do plan to go back and explore to kind of take an accurate, to get an accurate perspective of the actual size, because it was so high up and so far away. I'm not sure I can really honestly tell you the size until I go there and you know, really honestly look at it. But it seemed big.
Yeah.
I want to say that, but I plan to return and really investigate.
I mean, I'm going to be heading out to the West Coast probably next year at some point. I was going to hit LA later this year and then make my way up the coast. But my wife got pregnant, and so she's going to have the baby in late September. So
congratulations.
Thank you. But I don't think it's wise to be traveling across the country and leaving my wife at home. So, but next year I'm probably going to head on out, and I'll definitely be in that area because I'll be visiting my friend, and so maybe I'll be hitting that area too, because
awesome.
I definitely want to check it out and stuff, because these things are out there. Yes, they're absolutely huge, especially in that area. So the Pacific Northwest is known for just large animals in general. I mean, we have mountain lions here in Pennsylvania, and they get about 115 to, if you get 125-pound one, it's very big. But out there, you'll get a 200-pounder easily. And animals are bigger out there. And so we have Bigfoot sightings here in Pennsylvania, and typically they're reported as about 6.5 to 7 feet tall, maybe 7.5, but that's about it. But out there, I mean, Wes, his experience, I think he described one of them being around 9 to 10 feet tall.
Oh, yeah.
They're absolutely huge. I can't imagine.
I don't want to say yet what I think until I return, but I would say this thing was really big. And it also, as it left the scene, it was very wide. Like its extremities were so lanky and long. It just defied my like brain's ability to even process. It definitely was nothing I have ever seen before.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you were expecting it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, it definitely got me good.
Yeah,
yeah.
So this thing is walking away from you, and as it's walking away, it's uphill, and it's on all four, right?
Yeah, but its torso faced me.
That's so crazy. So
like its head and torso, like imagine, like, it sounds silly, but a spider or octopus is the words I've used to describe it. It's the best human like language adjective of what I can compare it to that I have right now in this journey. I'm sure my eyes are about to be opened as I start to explore more about this area and other encounters, and it's already started happening. But, you know, that was kind of my initial reaction. But it was really, it was, I have said also, like, it didn't make me, the way that it moved and just kind of vanished on the terrain that I knew and had just been through, it honestly reminded me of something that's almost alien which, I have no idea, but it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense, and you're not the first person to describe it like that. I mean, a lot of people believe that these things could be extraterrestrial and not even from here.
Totally get that now.
Yeah,
and it's funny because I've heard like when I first moved here, there's lots of believers, and I wasn't really closed off to it, but I also wasn't like into it. I just was like, cool, my mascot where I work is a Sasquatch. That's awesome. I love it. But I hadn't really had anything affect me enough or had any kind of personal experience or friend of a friend or anything like that to where I had really consciously done any research. I'm not from here. And it just wasn't in my awareness. So wasn't something I was looking for or thinking about at all.
Yeah. I totally get that.
Yeah.
So now that we've talked about this, why is it that, and I think I know the answer to this, but why is it that you're so hesitant to give it a label of something? Is it because of the mannerism of how it operated, and on top of that, the idea that, it could be so many different things outside of just the idea of a creature that lives out there? Because there's a lot of people that have these experiences and they're very quick to label it as something, but you're very hesitant with that. What's the philosophy behind that?
The philosophy behind that is I have, number one, I was not sure I was ready to speak about this with anyone yet. That wasn't like immediate family and friends. And I want to be cautious because it was so unexplainable. And the way it affected me was so powerful that I feel like it's worth truly investigating personally. I've also had some feedback on other things from friends that are like, oh, I know a friend who had an experience too. And I feel like I need to wait and just like process and listen and observe. And I think in time, I'll maybe have more answers, maybe not. I do feel like, I know this sounds completely crazy, but I do have some kind of intuitive sense that in some way it was like a warning or a very important message that I can't understand right now.
That's interesting.
I just feel like, I made sure every time I've gone out into the woods since then, I've thanked the wilderness area. I've been very attentive and respectful to what I'm taking and how I'm moving through it and what I'm leaving behind or how I'm mentally entering the space. And I'm not sure if this was a personal thing for me or if someone else can relate to my story, but it is so personal. Just all of the range of emotions that I went through in the days after, and interesting serendipities and messages that are quite personal. So I just don't know if I'm ready to put a label on it. And maybe this is my first opportunity to reach out and connect with others, and I'll get, showered with, support or ridicule or whatever. And I'm sure I'll learn from it, whatever it is.
Yeah, I would say be guarded as to who you reach out to and who you let into the circle of, your experience, because the Bigfoot community online can sometimes be wolves among sheep. And so I would be definitely careful with that. But also, I'm kind of excited for you to
Thank you.
Be, pursuing the idea of what did you see? And I'll be sending you some files and stuff for you to check out and stuff of, people's experiences. And, I think I come from the angle of this. I think that the world is far more stranger than we can understand. I think the universe falls underneath that as
Absolutely.
well. And I think it's naive to think that we have it all figured out. And there's just so many people who say they have seen some crazy stuff out there in the woods or on land somewhere in this country, for everybody to either be lying or crazy doesn't make sense to me. People are seeing things out there. And that's why I do the show I do, is because I want to make sure that we document these things. And I think we can learn from hearing other people's experiences. I'm not a scientist. And how do you even go about, doing some kind of scientific research on something that nobody can keep up with? But we can chronicle these stories so that people can refer back to it. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people telling me things that I've heard before, and I start connecting dots right here on the show because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've heard this before, So I think it's very important that people share their experiences. I'm really glad that you did.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the opportunity and outlet and structure to share. I really appreciate what you're doing. And so, yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess I'm trying to think how I'm going to finish this show off now. I guess I'll finish off with Cheyanne.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for talking.
Thank you.
Hello.
Cheyanne.
Yeah, buddy.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
So she saw something that Wes saw. I mean, that's she did. And
yeah.
Wow. I don't know what to say. I mean, listen, when I heard Wes's story before we were even friends, I was fascinated by it. And then,
same.
And then when, he came on my show to tell it, way back in the day, I was fascinated by it. And every time I hear somebody's story that resembles his, I'm fascinated by it. The idea of how these things move, because I think it's because we're so accustomed to the idea that Sasquatch walks on two legs like Patty. It's just kind of frumpy and, frolics along. The fact that there are people who are seeing these creatures do physical things that seem almost impossible is very fascinating. Kind of gives them a new element too, because people think it's just big, lumbering, sure it can move fast, but you'll hear it coming kind of thing. But when you hear what she described and what even Wes described, it's like these things are giant monsters that can be light on foot, move very swiftly, and in ways that you can't imagine is even physically possible. It's very interesting.
It's super interesting. And that's so when she was telling me that story, as she mentioned, and I thought about this, as soon as she said this, my mom had, when I moved here, my mom took me and showed me kind of the general area of where Wes had his experience. And it's not far from where this happened.
No, not at all.
And no. And so, and for, like you said, for them to move, as soon as she said how they move, that's what I thought about. I was like, and that's also what made me think okay, this, again, this is, other people have said this, and Wes said that, how they move. And as soon as she literally said to me, this is gonna sound crazy, but it moved like an alien octopus. And then as soon as she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is I've heard this before. I've heard this from not only Wes, but I know a couple of people have they have said that on his show, and I was like, oh my gosh. But then because of Wes and other people, I was able to be like, well, you're not crazy. This is you can go and listen here and go on YouTube here, and all these people have had the same experiences, and it's just and like I said, it's around that general area. And but what I thought was interesting too, and I don't know, I was kind of trying to give her space while she was on the phone with you, but I live with her, and what I thought was really interesting and her personality in the subsequent weeks after this happened was totally like night and day. Like, it definitely affected her. And I know that it really got to her. So, but I do think, like you said, I think, it helped her to know that, like, she was not the only one that experienced this. And that's what I did. I wanted her to talk to you, and I'm so glad she got to talk to Wes, and because I think that helps. I think, like, talking about it helps.
Oh, she did talk to Wes?
Huh?
She did talk to Wes?
Oh, no, I thought I heard her. I thought,
no.
Was she talking to Wes before, or no?
We were playing clips from the interview I did with Wes. That's probably what you heard.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, just talking about it, I think that helps. And because it really did bother her, it got to her. So
yeah, I mean, I can understand that for sure. And I would expect that. If I saw what they saw, I mean,
yeah,
it changes you. And
yeah.
I'm looking at the map, and, you know, her experience happened 25, 30 miles from where Wes had his experience. I mean, it's not far.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, man, I got to get out there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. But it's just, I think, like, I understand, because it's, for her, it was like you wake up one day and, like, monsters aren't real, and then you wake up the next day and it's like, okay, monsters are real now. Like, it's like a complete 180 in it. It changes you, and
yeah,
in some ways really good, in some ways it just it's hard. It can be hard, but
well, I'm really excited to get out that way sometime next year. I was going to be going out to the West Coast this year, but then, you know, with Lindsay being pregnant, it's just not good timing.
Yeah.
But next year, probably mid to late next year, I'll probably be heading on out that way. And I'll be in LA for sure. And I'll make my way up the West Coast up to the probably the Portland area. And,
nice, yeah.
And maybe even further up. I think I'd like to go up into Washington for sure. If I'm going to be out there, I want to get into Washington as well.
Yeah.
The Olympic Peninsula, things like that. Well, that's the show, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, please share the show with your friends. This is the last public show that we're doing all for 2020. 2020 is in the bags. We got one more show coming up here for the members. But other than that, it is a wrap, friends. And honestly, thank God. Get us going on the right foot for 2021. If you love this episode, which I know you did because it was freaking awesome, please share it around all the social networks, everywhere. Put a note on somebody's car. I don't care how you share the show, but just share this freaking show so that we can get going on the right foot for 2021, because God knows we need it. All right, guys. Until next week, stay safe, take care, and remember, the truth will set you free, but first will piss you off. See you in 2021. Bye.
Just feeling probably like you. I'm just drifting, probably right beside you. All the abyss, control from afar. What did we miss? Now we're left with the scars. We love the lows but hate the highs. Is the other side of the sun. With all this glow, it's hard to hide. It's bright. We love the lows but hate the highs. The other side of the sun. Although it's dark, it's hard to find. It's bright. Everybody wanna preach a happy median. I see they dopamine fix come from media. Now your spirit getting booked on Expedia. Soul searching like Long Island Medium. I should've been taught. Sleepwalk through life, but being woke is an insult. They should've been caught. They want us flooded in fear by drowning us on the asphalt. We love the lows but hate the highs. Is the
sun. With all this glow, it's hard to hide. It's bright. We love the lows, but hate the high. Is the other side of the sun. With all this dark, it's hard to find. It's bright. Masking from elites, got us attaching what is free. Now we're rationing our needs for our soul. Yeah. We're not fasting from belief. The smell of Sharpies right the streets, looting liabilities like it's gold. Atomic number 79, Gucci, Prada, Jordan High. Sniff that line, it's on the house till you're sold. The ones that keep us locked for the felony time, or the ones that fund the dollars for the BLM sign. Y'all ain't really doing what y'all supposed to. Y'all just follow suit like the rest do. We love the lows, but hate the highs. Is the other side of the sun. With all this glow, it's hard to hide. It's bright. We love the lows, but hate the highs. Is the other side of the sun. With all this dark, it's hard to find. It's bright. Is the other side of the sun. It's bright. It's bright. We love the lows, but hate the high. Is the other side of the sun. With all this dark, it's hard to find. It's bright.
Hey, thanks for watching the Confessionals on YouTube. If you like what you heard, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, and hit the like button. That would be a great help to me. And if you want more of the Confessionals on a weekly basis, every Thursday I come out with a special show just for members on my website. So if you want to check that out, go to theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the join button, and become a member today. And every Thursday, you'll get a new show, and you can binge on previous shows, which there's almost 100 of them. So if you love the show, go ahead and check it out. But thank you very much for being here on YouTube and checking out the channel. Bye.